Bad Dreams from 1988 is a fairly obscure horror movie directed by Andrew Fleming, not to be confused with Ian Fleming of James Bond fame. Andrew Fleming's the guy that also directed The Craft and wrote The Craft as well, I believe. But this one's a lot more obscure. It's kind of fallen through the cracks for even the most ardent of horror fans. It's kind of slipped beneath the radar over the years and been long forgotten, despite the fact that it was one of the biggest horror home video hits of 1988. Now, at face value, this movie probably looks like a direct knockoff of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I mean, you have the troubled kids in a mental facility, and you have the antagonist, I guess you'd say, invading their dreams, although he technically doesn't invade their dreams in this movie. But those are sort of where a lot of the similarities end. Well, actually, I lie. There is another similarity. Jennifer Rubin is the lead actress in this movie, and Jennifer Rubin played the punk switchblade brandishing teen in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And here she's playing another troubled teen in Bad Dreams from 1988. So not that much of a stretch acting-wise for her, but it is what it is. So Bad Dreams basically begins with a bit of a prologue, I guess you'd say, showing this hippie commune in the late 60s, early 70s called, I believe, Unity House. At least I think that's what it's called. And it's led by a charismatic Jim Jones-esque cult leader played by Richard Lynch. And he's basically running this whole Heaven's Gate type death cult. I'm sure you'll remember Heaven's Gate, the UFO cult, where they all castrated themselves and all necked themselves in brand new tracksuits and brand new Nike joggers. So that was one of the more bizarre true crime / cult cases. So this one seems heavily inspired by that. I'm not too sure if Heaven's Gate was before 1988 or after 1988. For all I know, Bad Dreams might have inspired Heaven's Gate, which would be interesting for altogether different reasons. But as usual, I'm digressing here. Back to the movie. Bad Dreams is about this crazy Jim Jones type cult leader played by Richard Lynch. And Richard Lynch always looks kind of creepy, kind of menacing. He's a genre stalwart. You'll know him if you see him. I'll whack a picture in this review just to jog anyone's memory who might have forgotten the name, but definitely won't forget the charred face. And he's perfectly cast in this one because I believe Richard Lynch was a victim of third-degree burns himself, the actor. And he's playing as I said, Jim Jones-type cult leader who's obsessed with fire and brimstone, especially the fire part. And he's just soaked the entire commune with gasoline, much like Waco, which I believe also came... might have come after this one as well, so maybe Waco was inspired by Bad Dreams, and maybe that's why Bad Dreams got buried. But he's soaked the whole place with gasoline, much like a David Koresh type figure, and he's anointed all of his followers in one of the creepiest scenes in the whole movie. He's got this ladle and a big drum of petrol, or it's either petrol or turpentine or methylated spirits. Same when you're adding fire to it. And he's anointing them, as it were, pouring ladles of this stuff over the heads of his brainwashed parishioners. And he's convinced them that the only way to true enlightenment is basically in a towering inferno of the cult building, and all of them going up in flames together. So that's the setup for it. And the lead character... The lead protagonist, Cynthia, played by Jennifer Rubin, somehow survives, and she goes into a coma for, I think, 14 years. And then she comes out of the coma in 1988, which would be quite a culture shock for anyone. but probably less chaotic, I'm guessing, than the early 70s when the whole cult fire happened. 1988's probably a hell of a lot more peaceful in retrospect. So for rehabilitation, she goes into a facility that's largely occupied by very troubled youth and also very troubled middle-aged people. It's kind of like the one in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and you've got the psychiatrist in there as well, but instead of Nightmare on Elm Street 3's Craig Wasson, you've got Bruce Abbott, the guy that played Dan Cain in the Reanimator movies, not to be confused with Dean Cain. I think he's like one of those cheap actors that got into politics. And anyway, Bruce Abbott or Dan Cain, whichever you prefer, is trying to help all these people. And he takes a shine to Cynthia, of course, in what in retrospect looks like kind of one of the worst breaches of trust in medical history, because there does seem to be an agenda that goes just a little outside of helping this poor girl. But that is what it is as well. And needless to say, he probably does have his license to treat patients revoked after the events of this movie for becoming romantically involved with one of his patients. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So Cynthia starts seeing visions of Richard Lynch, the cult leader. She sees him both in his normally scarred state that Richard Lynch is always in other movies, and she sees him in this sort of quasi Freddy Krueger burnt to a crisp state, which also really makes you think of Nightmare on Elm Street 3 while watching this movie. So the similarities between this one and Nightmare on Elm Street 3 are many. And I think if men at work were able to get sued for copying Kookaburra Lives in an old gum tree for Land Down Under, then arguably Bad Dreams arguably should have been sued for basically aping so many aspects of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And maybe that's why this one's so obscure. Maybe it did get litigated into oblivion. At least that's my theory. I strongly believe that New Line Cinema saw one too many similarities here. They saw the similarity of the facility full of young troubled people, the nightmarish figure that appears in people's dreams, kind of, the burnt to a crisp maniac that's picking them off one by one, and even the cast member from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and other characters that seem inspired by Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and probably thought, oh, now it's on, mother effer. So they probably got all litigious on the collective asses of the makers of Bad Dreams, and that probably explains why it hasn't really had a proper DVD release or a Blu-ray release or a 4K release with all the bells and whistles. But aside from the, I guess you'd say, superficial similarities to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Bad Dreams does have a few original ideas. I mean, for one, she's not really being tormented by someone that's tormenting her dreams, more a guy that's tormenting her psyche. And if I say any more, I'll probably get into spoiler territory, which you don't want. And this one also has a major plot point that did prevent any sequels, in a manner of speaking, just purely because of the premise of the movie that's revealed in the final act. And that's probably a good thing, because I don't think that the litigious New Line lawyers, allegedly, probably would have allowed further Bad Dreams sequels to come out and flourish and proliferate. So for all these reasons, it is a bit of a tough movie to catch. It is a very creepy movie for many reasons. The whole cult aspect's always creepy, and the phenomenon of people joining these cults and basically following them over a cliff to oblivion, that always makes for some strong dramatic undertones or overtones for any kind of movie. It does have those Jonestown vibes, those Heaven's Gate vibes, those Waco vibes. I haven't looked into whether Waco happened before or after, but that'd be interesting, because Richard Lynch does give off some fairly strong David Koresh vibes and fairly strong Jim Jones vibes. Not so much the Heaven's Gate guy. He was more of a science fiction nerd, I believe, than a religious zealot. But maybe you can let me know in the comments. So a cool little quirky movie, one of the biggest hits of the 80s in terms of home video and horror, at least in the late 80s. It was of a lot higher quality than a lot of horror that came along in the 90s. A lot of the direct-to-video stuff took a bit of a downturn with that whole glut of direct-to-video horror. So Really Bad Dreams was one of the last quality examples. I'm guessing it had some kind of a theatrical release. It just didn't seem to here in Australia. Nevertheless, it is worth checking out. Worth checking out if you're a Nightmare on Elm Street 3 fan for the similarities. It'd make a pretty cool double bill with Nightmare on Elm Street 3, come to think of it. And a fun night in, and a fun time capsule of that whole late 80s period. And it is hard to see, hard to find. I don't think you can even find it here on YouTube or Tubi, any of the usual grey area suspects. If you track down a copy, it's going to have to be from somewhere nefarious, I guess, or one of the old home video copies, which is what I did. And it is well worth revisiting. It's one of those holy grails of physical media, I guess, that hasn't been touched as yet, to the best of my knowledge, by any of these big companies like Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or any of those, Second Sight. But it would be a good one for somebody to try and jump on and release so that more people can see it. So if you enjoyed this look back at Bad Dreams, help a brother out by liking, sharing and subscribing. And otherwise, I'm off to enjoy the rest of my evening. Hope you do as well. And as always, take it very easy.